do you reconcile these two views of the world and of innovation strategies in general? I mean, does this sort of bent on competitiveness and job creation do something to slow down this innovation process, or are there potential wins to be had from both perspectives? And anyone who would like to take a first shot at that is welcome to.
I'm happy to take a quick stab at it. First, I think it's actually potentially worse than what you described, because at least in the energy space, you often hear the argument on technology transfer that says, well, most of this stuff is in the private sector. We let it all happen. It'll be okay. We might not be able to get support for speeding it up, but at least we don't need to worry about slowing it down. The more the government gets involved in promoting innovation, the less tenable that answer will be, because the government will by default have a stake, a legal and financial stake in a lot of these different innovative activities. Now, I think it's still necessary for the government to be in that mix, but it introduces a host of more difficult questions. So, for example, you can't just say, well, you can license or buy IPR if you feel like it, and it's a private transaction if the government is a co-owner of that, for example. So I think that's the first point, and that's not just a dynamic in the United States. The more intervention there is on the promotion side, the bigger trade investment and IPR issues you may run into. That said, what's the sell? And the sell ultimately has to be that, unlike with a lot of other technologies, these are technologies where the market is not guaranteed. The discussion that we have, the sort of who will win the clean energy race, assumes that there's a clean energy race to be won. It assumes that the markets and the demand are out there. And it's not clear to me that, or well, I should say it is clear to me that the United States can't bring the cost of these things down to a level where we are going to create these huge markets all by ourselves. So we can win a race for a little pie. That doesn't sound all that exciting. You take a look at solar, for example. We've seen this emerging fight over the last week over Chinese solar, solar subsidies, but in general the movement of parts of the solar value chain to China. Well, what you see is the movement of the relatively low-tech parts of the value chain of China, which could be a bad thing at some level because some U.S. companies don't get to play in that. But it also brings down the cost of solar, potentially increases demand for the products that the U.S. companies are producing in the higher-tech parts of the value chain, in wafer manufacturing and in ultra-pure silicon. So there are potential win-wins if this kind of global diffusion happens in the right way, and if we're able to understand how that works. It's a more difficult story to tell, and that ultimately makes things more challenging.